Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to Sunday Night Live with me, Dr. Taz. Let me get my friends on Instagram ready as well. Hope everybody is doing okay. Tough times, man. I keep thinking that the light. Hi, everybody on Instagram. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday night. Everyone is joining me for live with me, Dr. Taz. I love doing these lives on Sunday nights. I apologize that I have been gone for a little bit. It has been one thing after another, right? First, it was I was on vacation, quite honestly, which was much needed and a lot of fun with our family. But then it became all about the protest and George Floyd. And I really felt like I needed to be quiet for a period of time. Hi, Carrie, I see you there. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of really good regulars on all platforms. Right now, we are broadcasting live on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook all at one time. I hope everybody is having an amazing Sunday night. If you're here in the US, it is Sunday night for us. If you're elsewhere around the world, I don't know what time it is. You guys can let us know. But welcome back. I'm excited to be doing this again. I was just explaining that I had taken a brief absence just for vacation, and then we had the whole issue with George Floyd, and really felt like I needed to be quiet and silent for a period of time and take a lot of information in and try to understand what was happening around me and let other voices get heard, quite honestly, that were probably more important than mine. So I'm back, and I'm back changed and different for sure. Many of us feel that heaviness, feel that sadness, right? With everything going on around us, with the race wars here in the US, with COVID and the pandemic and the aftermath of that, and what it means for the economy and what it means for the world and what it means for getting back out there and living our lives. But we do have to move on. We do have to move forward. And I'm all about the way forward and what that means and what that needs to look like for each of us. And I challenge you each as you listen tonight through some of what we'll be talking about, whether it's a study or whether it's a quote or a prayer or whatever it is, that you're thinking just that. What is the way forward? What is the message of hope and comfort and compassion that we can spread out there? Because we can't stay in anger, we can't stay in fear. And if you just listen to the media and listen to the news and don't challenge yourself, it is very easy to stay in those two emotions. And those are never constructive. They never help us in terms of building society and building ourselves back together. So tonight, this Sunday night, I want to focus on healing. I want to focus on the way forward, and I want to focus on what we can all do collectively to maybe come together. Some of you are requesting to jump in the video. I'll let you in just a second. Let's get through a couple of headlines, and I'll turn around and let you guys in just a minute. But let's start with a quote. If tolerance, respect, and equity permeate family life, they will translate into values that shape societies, nations, and the world. This is from Kofi Annan. I don't know if you guys remember him when he was with the UN and with other organizations, but it does begin in the home, right? So that's why healing the home and talking about family and the experiences that we have as a family or that we create as families is so incredibly important. So healing homes is critical. What you do in your home then permeates out into the world. So if we teach tolerance and respect, and we diversify the environments of our homes, we're going to create worlds and societies that are far more tolerant and far more understanding than what we're seeing today. So I'm going to turn this question over to you guys. Is racism a public health disease? Is this a medical issue? What do you guys think? Is that a yes or is it a no? Let me know, and you can comment and post your answers below. I have been saying this for a couple of weeks now, I think ever since the whole incident with George Floyd began, that I firmly believe that racism is a public health disease. And many of my colleagues are right there with me. They believe the same exact thing, and we've seen them come together, whether they are doctors, lawmakers, government officials, lawyers, whoever it is. But many of us are joined together in the belief that this is a public health disease. And just like cardiovascular disease, so many other diseases, autoimmune disease, it needs a comprehensive and well thought out approach to deal with it. An approach that begins within the home and what we as parents do, what we as families do, and an approach that then goes to our schools, then to our workplaces, then to our governing bodies. And that representation, as you might have heard from Dr. Jessica Shepard, who was with me just the other day, our representation in the political arena really needs to be reflective of who we all are and what we all look like. Because I think at the end of the day, it matters in breaking boundaries when it comes to racism. Why do I think racism is a public health disease? Well, let me give you a couple of very clear examples. I've put some Instagram posts up. You've seen those. But let me just remind you that we know infant mortality is highest in the African American community. We know that their rates of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and obesity is higher as well. We know that's true of the Native American community too. They have one of the highest rates of addiction and alcohol abuse. Now, why is that? Is that everyone else's fault? No, but the seeds of trauma are set in ourselves way before we even get here, and we have to consciously work together as a community and a society to undo those seeds of trauma. Here's what trauma does to your blood work. Trauma creates inflammation. Inflammation creates disease. Trauma also creates high insulin levels or high blood sugar levels. That creates disease too. We know that inflammation happens when blood sugar levels fluctuate, when they go high and then they go low and then they go high again. All of this is a setup for chronic disease. So, is racism a public health disease? I vote yes. And the reason is that there is limited access to medical care or health care in certain regions of the world, and definitely in certain spaces here in the United States. When there's limited access to care, it's often accompanied by limited access to resources like nutrition and healthy food that we talk about all the time here when we're talking about wellness, right? All the wellness influencers, we're always debating, what's the best diet? What's the best, supplement? What's good to take? Well, when we're talking about racism in medicine or racism as a public health disease, we're talking about the simple fact that there's not great access to good nutrition. So we got to change that conversation as well. And the third part of the sort of triangle, I like to think in triangles, right? But the third part of this that makes racism a public health crisis is simply that there's no relationship. And at the end of the day, the relationship, the story, your story, my story, our story is what creates healing. And that's the way forward. It what creates a space for us to talk and to understand our own wounds and to process them and then to help us move forward. But when there's not that relationship with a doctor, with a medical professional in certain communities, or even in the biggest, fanciest cities, how many of you really have a good relationship with your medical provider where you could bare your heart and open up what's going on and so they can really get to the root and to the detail and to the meat of what's going on with you? Well, when we talk about underprivileged communities, when we talk about certain ethnic groups, they don't even have the opportunity to foster or develop that relationship. I and my colleagues know, I don't know how many times we're in the exam room, we are talking about a medical problem. We could be talking about your cholesterol number or your blood sugar number, or we could be talking about the fact that your hormones are off. But as we head out that door and we put our hand, one of my colleagues, Dr. Jackie, calls it the doorknob question. We put our hand on that doorknob and we're about to open that door and step on out. You guys jump in. Oh, by the way, doc, I have something to tell you. But those moments are precious. They're like gold because that's when you bare yourselves to us, and we as medical professionals can then turn around and offer solutions. And if we didn't know the information, then we wouldn't really have the solution to offer. So what does all this mean? Where am I going with all of this? Here's where I'm going. I am simply going to a place where we all need to be understanding of the fact that limited access to healthcare resources, limited access to wellness resources, and limited ability to have relationship is the reason that racism is a public health crisis, because I get to see it every day in the exam room, even in my integrative practice, and absolutely in my days in the emergency room. It was a daily reminder of all that was broken in healthcare. And what we have to do is put it all back together. So the way forward is to understand that, to be empathetic, to be sympathetic, but then to dial it all back and go back to your home. What are you doing within your home, within your family, to push this conversation forward, to create dialogue amongst your family members, and to really affect change and tolerance? I'm going to read the quote again to you. If tolerance, respect, and equity permeate family life, they will translate into values that shape societies, nations, and our world. And I know that's your wish. I know it's certainly my wish. And that, my dear, is the way forward. And I hope you guys are all getting it and not bored to tears. So I'm going to go keep moving here, and we'll talk about a couple of other issues going on. I know Atlanta just had another episode yesterday of a young Black man being shot as he was running away. Again, this issue of how we interact and how we treat and how we enforce law, all of it obviously is another area that needs to be examined and needs to be probably rectified. But the mayor of Boston, can we give him a big cheer? The mayor of Boston declared racism a public health crisis, I think on Friday, and put aside resources that were allocated for other things into education around racism. Can we give him a clap? I think that was amazing. I think it was awesome. We have people that are coming to the table and wanting to have this conversation. And you guys know that's the only way things can change or things can really be any different. So we have, on one hand, we've got this race pandemic going on, right? And on the other hand, we've got COVID, with cases of COVID getting higher here in the United States. That sort of undercurrent of fear starting to come back. I think most of us agree that we can't go through another situation where we shut the country down again. I think from a mental health standpoint, I could tell you a million stories there. From an economic standpoint, it's simply not feasible. So what do we do? Where do we land and what do we do? And I think I'm going to be that voice that reminds you to not live in fear and to not live in anger, but to remember what it is you can do and what you can control. So just like with the race component of all of this, we talked about the things you could control. I am going to remind you of those very same things when it comes to COVID. Your hand washing, your personal hygiene, wearing masks in public spaces, especially if it's mandated where you live. These are things that you can control. And the fourth variable is very much what you're doing with your health, with your immune system. Remember, your immune system matters. I was just talking to some colleagues tonight at dinner, and we were talking about how the fact that many of the cases of COVID, you'll hear these stories, but if you peel underneath the layers, there was a second or a third or even a fourth diagnosis that went along with it. So at the end of the day, it's your immune system, what you are doing to protect your health, that ultimately is going to make a difference in how this pandemic plays out and whether COVID becomes just another flu. And that's what I'm hearing from most people, is that we've gotten really weary. We've gotten really tired. We've tried the social distancing. We've tried the quarantine, and we're just tired of it. That's what I'm hearing from most of you. And you're willing to go out there. So I'm with you. I agree in getting out there, but with safety and with precautions. So really observe all of these things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. If you are new to the Taz tribe and to the Taz page, I encourage you to download some of my guides. If you'll go to drtaz.com, or it's right there on, for those of you on Instagram, it's right there on the Linktree link. You will have an anxiety guide, an immune guide. You will also have a guide on having a healthy home, all things to keep you and your home in the best possible shape that you can. So to keep you guys healthy, and so as your immune system might be taxed, you've got a toolbox there ready to go. So hopefully that's all helpful information. Let's take a look at some of their latest studies, and then we'll talk about my latest guide. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, which is all about weight loss. So we'll get there in just a minute. Again, time flies when I'm on these things. It's already 9:15. And by the way, if you guys have questions, please feel free to post your questions or your comments. I can see that a lot of you are commenting from all over the world. We've got people, it looks like in Argentina. So hello, Argentina, people in India, hello, India. And then all over the United States, we've got West Virginia, we've got Atlanta for sure. Let's see, where else do we have? Someone said hello from Pennsylvania, from Dallas, Texas. Goodness gracious. Hi, guys. I hope everybody is getting value and good information out of these sessions that we do together. Okay, let's talk about this particular study about face masks. Who out there is wearing a face mask? Raise your hand if you guys are wearing a face mask. Okay, so we have been wearing one, definitely when we go into public spaces and public locations. And there is actually a study, this one is from Texas A&M, talking about how face masks do help decrease the transmission of COVID-19. And so our results clearly show that airborne transmission via respiratory aerosols represents the dominant route for the spread of COVID-19. So remember, guys, not surfaces anymore, not touching something. It is mainly airborne. So the whole thing about wiping your mail and wiping your grocery and all that other stuff, a little overplayed. So we can back off on all that stuff, but keep the face mask. This is an inexpensive practice in conjunction with social distancing is the most likely opportunity to stop COVID-19. And this work also highlights that sound science is essential in decision making, of course, for future public health pandemics. Okay, so a yes to face masks. So keep that in mind. Now, here's another important part of the COVID conversation that I feel like we haven't been talking about very much, and that's why I mentioned my anxiety guide. This is an article in The Lancet talking about how experts call for more awareness of the potential impact of physical distancing on adolescent peer relationships and social development. So this is interesting. So, I have a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old, and it's been interesting to watch what the pandemic and the quarantine has done for them. Now, while social media and Zooming has provided some level of connection, which has been valuable, it has also been very difficult for this particular group to not be around their friends because that's their entire being and their identity right now. So it's been incredibly taxing for them to not be around their friends, to not be able to see one another, and they're the ones experiencing a pretty significant rate of anxiety and depression. So for any of you that have those children of that age at home, then please keep in mind that this is challenging, and it probably is a good idea to start getting them out there and getting them acclimated. So adolescence, by the way, is a period of heightened vulnerability to mental health problems, with 75% of adults who have ever had a mental health condition reporting that they first experienced something before the age of 24. So this is a really tough time for our adolescents, and it's important sometimes when you're in it with them. Trust me, I'm right there. But when you're in it with them, you don't realize everything that's swirling around for them. So it takes a moment to step back and understand that they're in a phase of their lives where emotional regulation and emotional stability is very fragile, and something like a pandemic kind of throws off their order completely. And social media is a gift and a curse, right? They have connection, but then they also have a lot of access to things that they don't need to be having access to, and that can affect their very vulnerable minds. So be cognizant and careful of the images that your children, your adolescent children, are around, and the amount of time they're spending on social media as we navigate coming out of this. And please, dear God, we all need to be back in school in the fall. But if we're not, parents, teachers, we're going to have to be very deliberate about when they're on the computer and when they're not, and how they're supervised, because I am seeing firsthand the impacts of not being able to police their computer and social media time effectively. It's a really big deal. So keep that in mind. So those are the two stories I wanted to go over today. And then I wanted to segue into talking about you and how you guys are doing and how you're feeling. Let's make sure you guys don't have any questions. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Taz. I'm an integrative and wellness doctor, and I have been practicing for over a decade in integrative medicine. Prior to that, I was in the emergency room. I've had a very fulfilling, wonderful medical career, but I'm dedicated to empowering you and empowering women and children and the health of the family as a unit. So let's keep going here. Now, one of the things I'm hearing from a lot of you and from a lot of my patients as well is that they have gained some weight during quarantine. So if any of you out there gained quarantine weight, raise your hand. I know I did for sure. And some of that is not being able to get outside so much. Some of that is not being able to go to the gym. Some of that is having people at home that are baking a lot more, like my daughter, or some of you might be drinking more. I've been hearing that as well. But those are some of the reasons for the quarantine weight gain. So in listening to your stories, I was like, how do I help everybody lose weight? Here are the questions I get over and over again. Should I intermittent fast? Should I do a detox? Should I do keto? Well, the answer is, quite honestly, it depends. And it depends on who you are and what your type is. And I have the opportunity to peel away of that type when I'm in the exam room. But for many of you, you can never get to the exam room, right? So we've got to figure that part out. And so what we want to do is try to understand, what is your weight loss type? What do we need to do? So what I did is I created the weight loss guide, which is attached to the weight loss quiz for you to be able to find out what your weight loss type is, and then maybe get your 5 or 6 different rules to begin your roadmap to losing weight. And so there are 5 key types, and I'll go over them right now. And again, remember, you have to take the quiz to understand, which type is yours. But let's go over the types. So the 5 types, let's see if you can identify which type you are. So we've got the warrior, we have the protector, we have the anchor, we have the creative, and we have the trailblazer. So for example, the warrior is the one that needs more of an anti-inflammatory diet. That one might be more of a medium build. So take the quiz, figure out if you're the warrior or not. The protector, on the other hand, that's the person that probably honestly needs to be vegetarian or vegan. They typically have a weaker digestive system, and so they may benefit from the intermittent fasting and from some of these things that you're reading about. There are a lot of anchors that I meet. That's my next type. And that type, by the way, is usually better doing some intermittent fasting and better doing more of an anti-inflammatory diet. The creative, they need their protein, so they do great on paleo. And then the trailblazer is a mix of some of these types, so does well on paleo and then the anti-inflammatory as well. So again, long story short, go online, take the quiz, go to drtaz.com, take the weight loss type quiz, and then figure out your type. And then there's a guide that goes along with it to help you figure out your plan. So hopefully that'll get everybody streamlined a little bit, because the information is like way, way out here in terms of what everyone should be doing. But it'll bring it in a little bit and streamline it down so you maybe at least have a starting point. So that's my hope. You have a starting point to begin your journey back to you, to begin your journey back to feeling healthy and vibrant, maybe shedding some of the heaviness that we've all sat in and felt over the last few months. I know I have as well. So I actually had a lot of fun. I've been doing spinning classes, and I've never used our gym's classes. I've gone there to do weights and use the pool and do all this other stuff, but never used the gym for their classes. And they have some really great classes there. So I've been doing these spinning classes and drenched in sweat coming out of there. And it's one of the best feelings. But what it made me realize is that at home, when I've been doing all these home workouts, I'm not really, excuse me, I'm losing my voice for some reason, but I'm not really expending the amount of energy I think I am when I'm doing a home workout versus doing a workout in the gym, because you're so motivated by everybody else around you, right? I'm sure you guys experience that as well. So I would encourage you, work out in groups, work out with others. I'm sure you're fatigued of the home workout at this point. And switching things up, I think, ultimately makes a difference. It makes a difference when it comes to food. It makes a difference when it comes to exercise. Definitely makes a difference when it comes to the brain line between this area here. It benefits from variety and change and challenging yourself in different ways. So if you've been on that home treadmill or doing that home yoga, go ahead and get on out there and try something different, because your body is more than likely acclimated to that. So anyhow, just an observation from my world and what I've been doing. But find your weight loss type, take the quiz, let me know what you think, let me know if it resonates, and then go ahead and use that as a starting point to spring forward. And again, the website is drtaz.com, and there's a tab that says take the test. You can go right to it and you can take the weight loss test. When you do that, you will also notice a couple of other great tests and quizzes, all to empower you, all to bring you back into your power. And there's one for finding your power type, which many of you that have read the Superwoman RX already know about. We are working on male power types this week, so that should be ready just in time for Father's Day. There's already a child's power type up there, so you can try to figure out your child as well. And then there's the mom-child connection, to understand how your mom type and your child type works together to create harmony and to create peace in the family. So lots of great information there, but we'll start with you, trying to get back to you. Take a look at that. All right, if you guys don't have any other questions for today, the only other thing I wanted to remind you about is everything happening this week. We've got a lot going on. Hey, Danielle, I see you there. Let's see if we have any other questions other than the inappropriate comments from a particular person on Facebook. But let's see. Yeah, not so many people wearing masks. People are talking about that for sure. Okay, I don't see any other questions on here. But what I was going to end with, sorry about that, guys. What I was going to end with is just reminding you about the week. So this week, there's a lot of great Instagram and Facebook Lives. So I'll be live again on Tuesday on Facebook and on Instagram. On Tuesday, we'll have Dr. Tara Swartz, who is incredible. She wrote a book about brain health and mastering your brain, and we'll be talking a little bit about what it means to come out of the quarantine, what it's done to your hormones and the like. And then on Friday, it's a double hitter, but in a different type of take on this quarantine. I'm meeting with a world-renowned psychologist along with astrologer who's going to paint the big picture for us of what this quarantine has meant for the world and what the race wars mean for the world and what kind of era we're headed in next, along with an intuitive who will do the same. So a different take and a different perspective on world events and a different way of approaching it. So that's what's coming up later in the week. All throughout the week, if you guys have questions for me, feel free to post it, and we'll continue to really hone in on this weight loss guide and your weight loss type to help you shed the quarantine heaviness. That's what I'm calling it. Literally shed everything that we're all carrying around and jump forward and move forward to hopefully finding a better version of ourselves and then stronger and healthier families. All right. Thank you guys all for joining me. I appreciate it. If you haven't joined the Taz Tribe, make sure you do that as well. We have all kinds of specials and discounts on products and courses and special sneak peeks to events and all that other good stuff. So go to drtaz.com/Taz-tribe. Join the Taz Tribe. There's a link on Instagram as well for you guys to do that. So go ahead and sign up for that. And lastly, I will end with a quick prayer. You guys ready? So blessed are the peacemakers, because they shall be called the children of God. We're all responsible for peace, bringing peace, and healing one another. That's the way forward, guys. I hope you have an amazing week ahead. Thank you for joining me for Sunday Night with Dr. Taz. I will see you guys soon. Stay healthy, stay well, and stay super powered. See you later.